As novelists, we are constantly posing and answering questions for readers. Immediately, when the reader opens up your book, what are they doing? They're saying, well, who is this character? And why are they happy, sad, nervous, scared? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? Right? So they're constantly asking questions, and it's good. That's what we want them to do. We want them to continue to ask questions throughout the novel because that means they're interested. They're turning the pages to find out the answer to that question that's in their mind. So as writers, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we are constantly leaving those little, answering questions, kind of posing questions so that the reader has that question in their mind and then answering that question. So as they're turning the pages, they're getting the answers to their questions, but then they have new questions that they want answered and that your book and your story is going to answer. Remember that curiosity that the reader has about the character's problems and how they're going to solve the problems and what's going to happen next. That is why they read the book. That's what keeps them reading, and that's what you want. So today we're going to talk about how to create those questions so that we can keep the reader turning those pages.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante. I'm a women's fiction author, and I'm here on Fridays to give you some writing tips and to share a little bit of what I know. So the cool thing is that readers want to know everything. They want to know everything about your world. As they start to read your book, they're curious about your characters, they're curious about the world that you're created, and they want to know more. And so this is why that opening of your novel, that opening sentence even, is so important to your story, because that is what's going to capture your reader's attention, and that's what's going to make them want to continue to read, right? So the opening is super important, and it should pose a question immediately. So let me read you an example of a book that I read recently. And it was The Barefoot Princess by Christina Dodd. And this is the way that she started the story, okay? Once upon a time, in a small kingdom of Amante, I think that's how you pronounce it, there lived a young princess who decided that when she grew up, she would battle dragons. Okay, so good first sentence. Why? Because the first thing that you think, right, at least my brain, what I thought is like, well, why does she want to battle dragons, right? Why does this little girl want to battle dragons? Is she talking about like real dragons? How old is she when she thought this? How little was this little girl? Did she, when she grew up, did she still want to battle dragons? You know, so your mind starts to ask questions as you're reading the story. So as you read the first sentence, your brain immediately asks some questions. If the author quickly or very soon answers the question, then the story stays interesting and the reader is happy, right? So if they ask a question, you can anticipate as the writer the question that they're going to ask, and you answer it soon, then happiness, right? Reader is excited, they keep reading your book, they will have more questions, but they're happy because you've answered the thing. Now if you don't answer it, now that you go into backstory and you start talking about something else, or you go into the future and you never talk about the dragons, you're like, your brain's still thinking about like, well, why did you want to battle dragons and what does this have to do with the story? So you want to make sure that you're posing questions and then you're also answering them soon. The interesting thing about our mind is that our mind is really always looking for answers, right? We're always trying to answer the questions. And if the writer doesn't answer those questions, then the reader is going to fill it in themselves, right? So the reader may be thinking, well, why does she want to battle the dragons? Maybe there was a dragon that terrorized her village. Maybe, right? Your own brain will start presenting answers. Your reader will start creating their own answers to that question, which again makes it super important for the writer to actually provide the answer that you want them to have, right? So that they're not creating their own story And then when you finally do answer, they're like, well, wait a minute. I thought it was better if she was, the dragon terrorized her village. Those are some of the things going through my mind is like, okay, maybe a dragon is terrorizing her village. Maybe she wants to be like her older brother. Maybe a dragon killed her older brother and she wants revenge. Maybe, you just start thinking of all these things. So until you provide the real answer, they're going to create their own answers. Okay, so just remember that. Now, knowing that, what we want to do is we want to create a series of scenes that are going to ask questions, and then where are you going to answer it? Okay, so she presented this opening with a dragon. At what point is she going to answer this question about why this little girl wants to fight dragons? So she needs to do that, right? Which she did. So this is the line that actually follows us. So she immediately tells us why she wants to fight dragons. So she says her two older sisters told her that only princes battle dragons. But Princess Amy refused to listen to the naysayers. She wasn't a girl like the others. She loved to run and shout, to pretend a stick was a sword, and to fight the suits of armor that lived in the broad marble corridors, to climb the aged oak and tear her silk skirts. Unfortunately, the only dragon that presented itself to Amy was her grandmother, a formidable old woman with strong opinions about how princesses should behave. Amy hated her grandmother, the dragon, and at night in her ruffled bed, she prayed that Grandmama would die. Okay, so immediately she tells us, why does Amy want to fight dragons? Well, because she's not like this normal princess. She doesn't want to be this, have these the beautiful dresses and just be the, typical girl. She was just not, that wasn't her personality. So this is why she wants to fight dragons, but she has a problem, right? There are no real dragons except for this grandmother. So Christina Dodd does a good job of immediately responding to that question that was in the mind of the reader. But you wanted to continue to do then is you want to answer the questions, right? And then you want to begin to pose new questions. So now she did that, right? So she answered the question of the dragon, but now there's a new question, right? Like, why does she hate this grandmother enough to wish she would die, right? That's a new question. Why does this little girl feel this way? What is the grandmother doing? What is their relationship? Why doesn't she like her? So this is what you want to do, right? Immediately after you answer a question, you want to pose a new question because it creates more curiosity in the reader that the reader wants answered. And so now it's like, okay, now I want to read and find out why she doesn't like her grandmother, and that keeps us reading, right? So it's a nice narrative trick that writers play on their readers, right? They're continuously asking questions so that the reader stays curious and stays interested in the story, and the reader loves it. Pausing for a second to let you know about a couple of courses that I've created. If you're a beginning writer and you want some help with your book, I just want to let you know that I do have a basic course on how to write, and I'm going to post it below. And if you're not a beginning writer, but you are more established and you're ready to publish your work, you have your novel written, I also have a publishing course, and I will also post it below, so take a look at it. Maybe they'll be just what you're looking for. All right, let's go back to the video now. Now, readers like to be entertained and they like to be challenged too, right? So obviously they like to be entertained. They're reading the novel so that you could tell them a story, so it takes their mind off their normal life, and they're reading just this fun story to be entertained. But the reader also wants to be a little challenged, right? So they enjoy answering these questions or thinking about what might be the answer. And when the writer then presents the answer to these questions, why does she want to fight dragons? Why does she hate her grandmother? Once the writer answers those questions, it's fun, right? Because the reader is like, okay, oh wow, I was right. This is why this is why she wants to fight dragons. This is why she wants to, or they're like, oh man, no, I didn't get that right. But it's a challenge. It's just a fun thing to try to figure it out. We all do this all the time, right? We do this when we read, we do this when we watch a show or TV and we see something happen and we're like, oh, I know why she did that, right? I know she's going to go into that bathroom and then she's going to get killed, right? I know that they're always going to go into the basement where it's dark, or no normal person would do that, but this character is going to do that. And then she does, and you're like, I I knew it. I knew she was going to do that, right? So we like that as readers, as viewers, to try to anticipate what's going to happen in the story to see if we're right. And then sometimes we like being wrong. Like we like the challenge of like, oh, I didn't even think of that, right? That's brilliant. And we love that too. When we love it when we're right, and then we love it when we're not right, because that means the writer was really good. Like they really led us down this path where we didn't even know where we were going to go. But when we read it and we see it, we're like, yeah, this is great, right? So I love the fact, for example, that there wasn't a real dragon, or that she didn't want to do it because her brother got killed by a dragon, right? But she did it because she's an independent young woman who doesn't want to be a regular princess. That's awesome, right? So it's not like what I originally thought, but it's even better than I thought. So in order to keep your readers absorbed then in the story, you want to remember that you're always supposed to be posing these questions in your story. You don't ever want to go into long chapters and scenes that are not creating new things for the reader to be curious about. And it doesn't have to be major, right? So not every novel is a murder mystery. Not everything is going to have clues about what's, who did it or who killed the bad guy and all that. I write women's fiction. There's nothing like that in my books. However, there's always something like, why did the character do this? Is the character going to be able to keep their job? Is the character going to be able to find the real father? Is the character, right? So there's questions that are still important to the character, therefore they're important to the reader as well. And as I move through the scenes, I'm creating new questions that the reader's going to know. So maybe, yes, she finds her dad, right? Her long lost dad. And okay, so now the mystery is solved there, but then maybe she finds out something else about this guy that she wasn't thinking that she was going to find out. And now she's got a new question or a new problem, right? So there's always something new until you finally get to the end where everything is solved. So remember that creating good questions and surprising answers is what creates that interest that keeps readers turning the pages, entertained, and challenged. Okay, so this is just a short video. I just wanted to share this with you because a lot of times we're not thinking that way, right? When we're writing our scenes, we're not thinking about like, are we creating some curiosity? What question am I creating in the reader's mind? And you always want to keep doing that. All right, I hope this has helped you. If it has, please hit the like button. Please share this with friends and subscribe to the channel so you'll be notified next Friday when my new video is out. All right, thank you, and I'll see you next week.